Hi everyone, I hope you had a nice weekend. This is a recap of session 3 of Sobe Mindful at Miami Law. Uh, First, where have we been? Where do we find ourselves now? Well, we've learned about 4 primary elements: the tree, the wind, the clouds, and the sun. Each of those elements has a doing practice. We've been practicing the doing practice for each of those elements. Last week we were introduced to the clouds, and this week we spent a little bit more time going a little deeper on the clouds. A reminder, with the tree, we adjust our posture, perhaps stretch or relax our fingers as if the fingers maybe are leaves on the branches of a tree. We could even stretch like the branches of a tree, look up and take a moment with a fuller stretch. The idea is to adjust your posture, to do something to allow the posture to be a little bit more open and full at whatever level you want based on where you are and how much time you have and what you feel like doing. The doing practice is to take 1, 2, or 3, or as many as you want, but 1 to 3 slower, deeper breaths. The doing practice for the clouds. This week we spent a little bit more time on it, and I'll put up a video from our class so that you can watch this in more depth. But a brief recap is that the clouds represent thoughts and feelings, and the doing practice is to actually generate in the mind thoughts and feelings. We spend much of our day with thoughts and feelings continually coming and going. Oftentimes we're unaware of them, and oftentimes we get sort of pulled into them. So this is an opportunity to actually generate intentionally a thought and 2 feeling states. So we think in our mind, we hear ourselves say essentially, this is a thought, and then we smile and we think to ourselves and feel, this is a feeling, and then we frown a little bit with the mood dropping perhaps ever so slightly, and we think to ourselves, this is a feeling. And that's the doing practice with the clouds. In our booklet, we've got a couple of pages that elaborate on that, ask you to write down some thoughts and feelings that come so that you can be more clear in understanding perhaps what this practice is all about, and then a little bit more information about it. So I think that you'll find that the doing practice with the clouds is hugely important, hugely helpful. But unlike the tree and the wind and the sun, which I'll get to in a moment, which are very easy to do in an almost thoughtless way, the clouds require a little bit more thought and can take a little time. And so I encourage you to do the doing practice with the clouds a couple of times a day, not necessarily feel you need to do it all the time. Then when we move to the sun, we have spreading of warmth. That's the doing practice where we wish happiness or kindness for somebody else. May you be happy. We wish it for ourselves. May I be happy. And then we talked about we could even go beyond that and wish may everyone be happy. Now that's the doing practice for each of the elements. The being practice, which really represents, if you would, the sun now being out. Sun is awareness. And awareness of what? Well, if it's the tree, we're aware of the sensations of the body. We don't have to do anything to be aware of the sensations of the body. We're aware, we direct our attention, we allow our attention, which is already here, to rest with the sensations of the body. The being practice with the wind is to be aware of the breath flowing through the body. The being practice with clouds is to be aware of thoughts and feelings. And the being practice with the sun is to simply be aware of nothing in particular, or everything for that matter. So it's just this open field of awareness, being open and receptive to whatever comes and whatever goes. That's the being practice with the elements. So what we learned this week is we're going to now, each day, beginning with 5 minutes, work through those elements. And as you'll see on day 1, we have the listing of the elements with instruction. So we'd see the tree and be told, let's adjust our posture. We move to the wind and we take 1 to 3 slower, deeper breaths. The clouds come into mind, and so we think to ourselves, this is a thought. We smile, this is a feeling. Frown, this is a feeling, and then the sun. May you be happy, may I be happy, may all beings be happy. Importantly, that bookend, that beginning to the morning practice or the daily practice could take 15 or 20 seconds, could take 45 seconds, could take a minute and a half. However slow you wish to go through them, and it's important not to do it feeling rushed. But how slowly you choose to go through it can be whatever length of time you choose for it to be. Then for the rest of the sitting, however much time is left, we then have it where for this week we now have the sun out with either the tree or the wind, where we would then rest our attention on the sensations of the body or rest our attention on the sensations of the breath. And that would be a traditional, basic, fundamental mindfulness practice. We'll do that each day. The length of time grows. And as you'll see in the workbook, after day one, there's no longer the instructions, there's just the images. Because now we can be guided by the images. Just like if you're looking outside when you practice, just by what you see and knowing that we can move from tree to wind to clouds to sun guides us through this practice. Now, we also have it where when we get to day 4, right about there, we have a secondary element that's been introduced, and that secondary element is the bird. And the bird represents listening. So when we see a bird or we hear a bird, it's a wake-up call to expand the field of awareness and attend to sound. Sounds nearby, sounds far away. Open into whatever sounds there are as they come and as they change and as they go. Importantly, we're listening as if with ears that are hearing for the first time. We're not thinking about the sounds. We're not trying to figure anything out. We are present, much like the tree, for example. It's not thinking about the sounds, but the vibrations, it absorbs them. It's there for whatever is arising. And so that's the practice with the bird. It might be a person that you're talking to and you're sort of somewhere else, and then you chance upon a bird or you hear a bird, and that brings you back to listening to what that person is saying. Or it could be you're just outside and you listen to even the bird itself, or you hear the faucet around the lake of the water flowing, or whatever that may be. Leaves rustling, people chatting, cars coming and going. But we're listening in that open and receptive way. And we're practicing being a little bit more open and receptive, non-judgmental, when we are listening to things that are taking place around us. Now, the other piece of each day is the way we now address and approach the punctuated practice. So we've been working with the punctuated practices that when we're outside and we see a tree, we adjust our posture, or we feel the breeze, we take a slower, deeper breath, or we see the sun or feel its warmth, and we wish kindness for somebody or for ourselves. And now we have it with the clouds that we can think the thought and feel those two feelings to sort of prime a greater awareness of what's going on in the mind in that moment. The 3 doing practices. But now we move to what is known as the Sobe mindful flow. And that is where when we're out and we see a tree or we come across a tree or we bring to mind our element of the tree, in a moment I'll talk about the go-to practice, we then flow from doing to being aware. And that can take all of a few seconds or longer. With the wind, we might take a slower, deeper breath and then stand there for a moment, noticing the breath flowing through the body, maybe even noticing the wind flowing around us, a connection of our own breathing and the nature's breathing, if you will. That would be the punctuated practice. Importantly, the book asks you at the beginning to see if there's a go-to practice, a go-to element. Maybe it's the tree and the body, maybe it's the breath and the wind. For many of you it was either the tree or the wind or the sun. And to have it where you have that in mind so that if you're walking or you're maybe in line waiting during the day and beginning to get a little frustrated or restless, you go, oh yeah, that's right. Look around and notice an element and then do the practice with the element, moving from doing to being, or go to your go-to element and do the doing and being practice for that particular element. So that's the set of practices for this week. I hope this is helpful. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday